Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, James takes Diep to a party, but then something terrifying happens. Can James protect her until the very end? Stay with me throughout the video to fully experience the story. James has always known that Diep is strong. But only by living beside her every day did he truly understand her gentleness, a quiet kind of tenderness that needs no display, no audience, yet softens his heart little by little. Every early morning, before the sun rose behind the hills, Diep was already awake, lighting the stove and preparing breakfast for the whole family. She rarely spoke, simply worked with steady, thoughtful care. Then she swept the yard, hung the laundry, tended the plants, and helped his brother with heavy work around the farm as if she had never known fatigue. What touched James the most was the way Diep treated his mother. Not the stiff politeness people use to impress, but sincere, natural kindness. Whenever she saw his mother getting tired, she would bring out a chair for her to rest. If she coughed, Diep made her a warm ginger drink and stayed beside her to talk. In those moments, James often stood at a distance watching them, one older, one younger, and felt as though the house had finally gained the warmth of a true family. James understood well that Diep's life had never been easy. At 18, when others her age were still sheltered by their parents, she was sold as someone's wife, enduring humiliation so deep she once believed she would never escape. When she finally broke free, all she had left were empty hands and a fear that could crush her at any moment. No parents, no protection, no one to teach her how to continue living. Yet Diep somehow held on to a rare kindness. She did not blame life, nor harden her heart. She simply kept going, quietly, steadily, like a small sprout pushing upward through cold soil. There were nights when James came home very late after long hours of work, and the dim porch light illuminated Diep's small figure. She would sit there with a tiny notebook, calculating expenses for the household, while her other hand carefully repaired his mother's old sweater. The soft clicks of her knitting needles filled the silence, creating a peace so gentle it tightened James's chest. He often watched for a while before stepping inside, afraid to disturb the moment. It was in those nights that he realized he wanted to protect her, not out of pity, but out of genuine admiration for her way of loving the people around her. As for Diep, she never thought she was doing anything extraordinary. To her, anyone who treated her kindly deserved her wholehearted sincerity. Years of drifting taught her the value of a home, so every smile, every small question of concern from James's mother felt precious. Being cherished by James, accepted as a daughter by his mother, and hugged by little Nee every night, all of it slowly filled the empty spaces she once believed could never be filled. As they spent their days together, sharing chores, facing small everyday challenges, the bond between James and Diep deepened naturally. No matter how busy he was, James always messaged her to ask whether she had eaten, whether she felt tired, or if she needed help. And each time he returned home and saw her smiling at his mother or wiping the small kitchen table in their warm little house, happiness surged through him, a kind of joy he never believed he would experience. For Diep, every time she heard his motorbike stop at the gate, her heart beat a little faster, a mix of warmth and nervousness she couldn't quite explain. She grew used to his presence, to having someone check on her at the end of the day, to dinners filled with laughter, to little Nee running around asking James to carry her. It all happened so gently that she herself didn't realize how much their relationship had changed. One day, in the middle of a busy work schedule, James unexpectedly received an invitation to a class reunion. His college group chat immediately became lively, filled with photos, excited messages, and the usual teasing. "This time, make sure you bring your girlfriend. Don't show up alone like all the previous years, James." The familiar jokes made James pause for a moment. He stared at his phone screen, and an image rose instantly in his mind, Diep's eyes, sometimes quietly sad, sometimes sparkling when she smiled, her small hands working gently around the warm little house, her slender figure that somehow carried unwavering strength he deeply admired. Just imagining Diep standing beside him at the reunion made his heart grow warm. Not because he wanted to show off, nor because he needed to impress anyone. He simply wanted her to know she had a place in his world, that he was proud to hold her hand in front of everyone, that he wanted to build a future with her, openly and wholeheartedly. That thought made James leave the office earlier than usual. On the way home, soft music played in the car, but his mind was filled only with thoughts of her reaction. Diep was gentle, sincere, and carried wounds so deep that even a simple compliment sometimes embarrassed her. She was always self-conscious about her past, always feeling she didn't belong in James's world. But the more he saw the honesty in her eyes, the more he wanted to tear down that wall, with tenderness, with respect, and with a quiet promise that she would never have to face the darkness alone again. When James drove into the yard, the afternoon sky was turning a soft orange, and a light breeze swept through the flower garden that Diep tended each day. She was standing among the hydrangeas, her white shirt fluttering gently, holding a small watering can. The evening sunlight touched the droplets falling onto the petals, creating a scene so peaceful that James stood still for a few seconds, wanting to capture it in his heart. Diep looked up, surprised to see him home so early. "You finished work already?" James didn't answer immediately. He walked toward her, step by step, as if afraid of disturbing the calm surrounding her. Then he gently held her hand, still carrying the faint scent of flowers. She flinched slightly, her eyes widening in surprise, but she didn't pull away. "Diep," James said softly, his voice deep and sincere, "come with me tonight." "Go, where?" "I have a class reunion. I want to introduce you to everyone." Such a simple sentence, yet it made her entire world stop. She froze, her hand trembling slightly in his. Old memories, years of being looked down on, mistreated, sold like something no one wanted, surged up from the depths of her mind. Even though she was now living in warmth, loved by James's mother, hugged by little Nee each night, and protected by James himself, her insecurity still lingered deep within her. Diep swallowed, her voice small, "Will I even fit in? I'm afraid they'll judge me." James looked straight into her anxious eyes. He held her hand more firmly, not tight, but warm enough to steady her. "Diep," he said again, gently but with certainty, "you're the one I want standing beside me." His voice wasn't loud or dramatic, but each word felt like it touched the softest part of her heart. At that moment, Diep couldn't say anything else. Her eyes grew slightly wet, and her hand remained in James's, small and fragile, but carrying a trust that was slowly being rebuilt. The class reunion took place in a small but cozy restaurant, warm yellow lights reflecting on familiar faces, laughter blending with the soft clinking of glasses. James's college friends, despite the passing years, were just as lively and affectionate, enthusiastically sharing old memories, catching up on work, family, and all the changes life had brought them. But the moment James walked in holding Diep's hand, the atmosphere subtly shifted. A few curious glances, a few evaluating looks, and then whispers began to spread, sharp, quiet, but impossible to miss. "She looks so plain. She doesn't match James at all. Looks like someone who sells things at the market. She probably just clings to him for money." The voices were soft enough to pretend innocence, yet clear enough for Diep to hear every word. She froze, her chest tightening. Even though James was still holding her hand, the warmth of his touch couldn't stop the chill spreading through her heart. She knew she wasn't strikingly beautiful, nor did she carry the polished confidence of city girls. She knew her past wasn't something she could show off proudly. But hearing those words felt like someone was peeling away all the layers she had tried so hard to protect. She didn't dare lift her head. Her fingers trembled so visibly that James gave her hand a gentle squeeze. She forced a small smile at him, not wanting him to worry, not wanting him to see how fragile she truly felt. A moment later, she whispered, "I'll go fix my hair for a bit." James didn't suspect anything. He simply nodded and told her to be careful. But as Diep walked toward the restroom, the whispers behind her rose again, louder this time, sharper, cutting with no restraint. "James is handsome and successful, and he's dating that. He must pity her. Look at her. She screams countryside." The restroom door closed, but the venom in those words seeped through the silence, clinging to her thoughts. She stood before the mirror, trying to breathe. But the reflection staring back at her only deepened the pain. Her eyes showed the insecurity she always carried, and her lips trembled with humiliation. Then tears fell. One by one, dropping onto her clenched hands. She tried wiping them away, tried forcing a small smile to look less shaken, but the more she tried, the more the tears streamed down. She knew she shouldn't break down over a few cruel comments, yet the scars of her past made her painfully vulnerable to contempt, especially when she feared she didn't deserve to stand beside someone like James. When she finally opened the door, she kept her head even lower. But James noticed instantly. Just one glance at her reddened eyes, and his heart tightened painfully. "Diep," he stepped closer, his voice low and tense. "Who made you cry?" She shook her head quickly, turning her face away. "No one. It's nothing, just something in my eye." But the tear still clinging to her eyelashes betrayed her. James didn't press her. He simply stared at her for a long, heavy moment, worry simmering beneath the quiet fury rising inside him. And then, behind them, came the familiar mocking laughter from the same group of people. This time, they didn't bother hiding it. Their voices were loud, clear, and merciless. "Look at her. Probably crying because she knows she doesn't belong here. Poor James, dating someone like that." James heard every word, each syllable sharp like a blade. In that moment, his expression changed completely. The warmth that always filled his gaze when looking at Diep was gone. His eyes turned cold, deep and dangerous. His jaw tightened, shoulders stiffened, and for a brief moment, it felt like the air around him shifted. As if one more insult would be enough to break whatever restraint he had left. James did not wait another second. His eyes sharpened into a cold, straight line, and his steps grew firm and deliberate. He walked directly toward the group who had just spat out their cruel remarks. The air around him seemed to freeze, and the room that had been lively moments before suddenly fell into a slow, uneasy silence. When he stopped in front of them, no one dared to speak. James scanned each face, each pair of eyes now avoiding his. Then his voice cut through the tension, low, steady, but sharp as a blade. "What did you just say about Diep?" Silence. Everyone lowered their heads like students caught misbehaving. A woman, the one who had been the loudest earlier, flinched when James's gaze landed on her. "We were just joking." James let out a laugh, but it was not amused. It was a cold, cutting sound that made several people shiver. "Joking," he repeated, his voice growing icier. "Calling her plain, unworthy, clingy, that's your idea of a joke?" The entire room felt as though the air had been sucked out. Conversations died instantly. The laughter from earlier vanished without a trace. Every eye turned toward James, afraid to move or interrupt. He straightened his posture, no shouting needed, yet every word landed with heavy force. "Diep has cared for my mother with her whole heart. She is honest, kind, strong, and more worthy of respect than anyone here." His gaze swept across the group, cold and merciless. Can any of you say the same about yourselves? Some bit their lips. Others flushed red. A few exchanged awkward glances. The cruel comments they had thrown at Diep now reflected nothing but their own pettiness. James continued, his voice sharp as the final cut of a blade. If this reunion is only for belittling others, then I don't need friends like you. No one objected. No one even breathed too loudly. James turned back, and instantly, his expression softened when he saw Diep standing a few steps away, her eyes still wet, her face composed yet visibly wounded. He walked to her and gently draped his jacket over her shoulders, the protective gesture so tender it made her chest tighten. "Let's go," James said, warm but unwavering. "You don't need to stay here another second." Diep gripped the jacket, her voice trembling despite her effort to steady it. I made things difficult for you. I didn't want to cause trouble." James turned fully toward her, taking her hand firmly, as if anchoring her before she could slip back into doubt. He looked straight into her teary eyes. "You are not the one who did anything wrong." His voice was deep, solid, unshakable. "And don't ever think you're not worthy of me." His fingers tightened around her hand, gentle but resolute. "You are the most special thing I have." His words made her lips tremble, her heart clench and bloom at the same time, a feeling of being protected, cherished, placed in a place she never believed she deserved. In the room that had turned silent as stone, only the two of them remained standing close, one wanting to shield, the other finally daring to believe she was truly loved. James drove away from the reunion with his hand still holding tightly onto Diep's, as if letting go even for a moment would allow her to fall back into the deep well of insecurity the world had pushed her into so many times before. That night, a gentle breeze blew across the lakeside road, and the lights reflected on the water like endless shimmering paths. He wanted to find a place quiet enough, a place with no judging eyes, no words sharp like knives aimed at her heart. Eventually, James chose a small cafe tucked beside the lake. It wasn't fancy or crowded, just a few wooden tables, warm hanging lights, and the soft sound of water brushing against the shore. The space felt light, comforting, like setting down a heavy burden after too long. When the server placed 2 warm cups of tea on the table and walked away, James reached out and held Diep's small hand. Her fingers were still a little cold, perhaps from the lingering hurt lodged somewhere deep inside her. He pressed his lips together for a moment, then spoke, each word carrying a resolve he had never shared with anyone else. "I'm sorry for not protecting you sooner. I should have stood by you from the very beginning. From now on, I won't let anyone hurt you, not even with a single word." Diep lowered her gaze. The warm light above cast a soft glow across her face, revealing ripples of emotion in her eyes. She tightened her grip on his hand, her voice trembling. I don't want them to think I'm not good enough for you. I know I'm not beautiful, not accomplished. I don't want to be a burden." Hearing that, James leaned closer and gently lifted her chin, making her look at him. His eyes held no anger, no frustration, only a tenderness so deep it made her want to cry all over again. "Diep," he said slowly, clearly, "you've survived things none of them could even imagine. You lived through horrors that would have broken most people. And the most incredible thing is, you still kept your kindness." He brushed away the tear clinging to the corner of her eye. "You take care of my mother as if she were your own. You work tirelessly. You're gentle with little me, and with me. Do you think these things aren't worth cherishing? I mean it, what you have is more beautiful than anything they showed off tonight." This time, Diep's tears didn't fall from pain. They slipped down quietly like pieces of ice melting, revealing warmth beneath, a warmth she never believed she would ever be allowed to feel. James didn't look away. His hand remained wrapped around hers, firm yet gentle, as if grounding her. I don't need someone perfect. I don't want anyone else. I just need you, Diep. You, and little me, are my family. His words were a key unlocking the door she had always kept closed, believing she wasn't worthy of stepping inside. She trembled, not from fear, but from a happiness so sudden and overwhelming it felt unreal. Outside, the lake rippled softly, small waves forming circles that drifted outward. The warm yellow light from the cafe blurred slightly in the breeze, making the whole scene tender and quiet, as if created just for them. In that moment, their love, quietly growing through shared days, gentle gestures, and unspoken care, suddenly felt deeper, steadier, as though it had just been tested by fire and emerged glowing from within. No grand promises were needed. No dramatic declarations. Just the way Diep lifted her eyes and saw James still looking at her with that same gaze, the gaze that placed her exactly where she deserved to be, was enough for her heart to finally believe again. Under the warm lights and the soft wind drifting across the lake, their world shrank into a small, perfect space, where old wounds gently loosened, and a new love took root deeper than ever before. That night, on the drive back from the lakeside cafe, a gentle breeze slipped through the car windows. Diep rested her head against the seat, her small hand resting safely in James's. The passing streetlights cast soft, golden streaks across her face, peaceful, yet carrying a fragile trace of something unresolved. James glanced at her and smiled softly. Diep, from now on, you don't have to fear anything. I'll be right here, beside you. She nodded slightly, warmth blooming faintly in her chest. But just as the car turned onto the road leading home, James suddenly slowed down, his eyes narrowing. In front of the gate, a tall silhouette stood motionless in the shadows. A man in a dark coat, face hidden beneath the brim of his hat. He didn't move, as if he were waiting for someone. Diep stiffened, her heart tightening, an icy sense of familiarity crawling down her spine. James immediately tightened his hold on her hand, his voice dropping into a lower, cautious tone. Do you know that man? Diep? She didn't answer. Her eyes widened, her lips trembled, because that figure looked exactly like the man she had been running from for years. The shadow lifted his head slowly. Cold, sharp eyes gleamed under the streetlight. And then, he smiled. A smile that drained the color from Diep's face. James instantly pulled her behind him, his stare sharp and alert. Diep, what's going on? She bit her lip, her whole body trembling. The man stepped forward, his voice low and deliberate. Diep, did you really think you could hide from me forever? The air grew thick. James tightened his grip on her hand. And just like that, their story stepped into a turning point no one could have predicted. Stay tuned for the next episode to uncover who that man is, and the truth from Diep's past waiting to be revealed.
Hello mọi người, cảm ơn mọi người vì đã theo dõi video hôm nay của mình nha. Mình nói trên video này là mình phải đi ăn đi, chứ mình đói quá rồi. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì đã xem video nha. Tạm biệt mọi người, hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo.